Stealing a car to drive to the store is not so easily forgotten. There's a reason for everything. And you are intended to determine from a set of choices one of the choices that's correct. And all other choices are incorrect. Well, no, that's not true. Each choice pivots on something of significance, usually an ethical decision. And I guess if you were to broaden ethics, not to meaninglessness, but beyond its current scope, you could say everything pivots on ethical decision. Are chunks. Imagine them being rectangles. Do they actually have any physical shape or size? No. But the point is, they're solid chunks. They're not, of course they're comprised of smaller elements, but they can't exist and be part of manifest reality without being part of a chunk. What's a chunk? It's a story from your life that has specific scope and fits in with the other slabs in certain ways. So if you've got a story like I do where I fell out of the bus when I was driving when I was a kid, and the story basically is, my mom turned right, we were coming from somewhere, I don't know. It's like before that point in the story is just, not something I remember. The part I think I remember is just the stretch of time from when she turned the corner to when Paul and I rolled out of the VW bus, to my mom pulling over, get us, and then I actually have sort of flashes of going to Kaiser with Paul. Paul was more hurt than me, so she wanted to take him to Kaiser. And that's a little bit after. But those ones are vague. It's sort of a piece of knowledge. It's not really even an image associated. Anyway, it's a slab. And this slab is comprised of icons that I pull up when I reference the slab. Now, for me, I'm not a very visual person, so my icons are pretty flashy. They're like, I see sort of a flash of California Boulevard and Rosemead right around there, that intersection. Coming from the north, turning right onto California. I picture that little thing, but interestingly, I picture it from this angle. So the band's coming here, right? I'm picturing it from over here. And then when the band does come, my picture shifts. There's a little flash of me in the band. Again, it's just a representation of me in the band in this picture. I may be standing. It's like even for the duration of the flash, I might not stay in the same place really, and it's not. And I'm not even. I can't pin down this picture at all, but it's an image of sorts, and it's like a pictograph almost, but it's more detailed than that. But I don't know. It's hard to describe one's own images in one's head. All I can say is that when we're going to test the solidity of one's image part of one's brain, I think the thing you'd want to do would be you get like a picture of a fairly simple line drawing, but complicated enough to have a few extra elements in there or something. And you show it to the person, and then you take it away and have them draw it. Show it, and then do it with a different picture. Show it to the person, take it away, wait a little longer, have him draw it. Repeat each time with a different picture and see the similarity change over time as they attempt the various drawings. I think I would do terrible just on the first drawing. I'd be able to do it when I'm still looking at the picture. I can actually, if I am looking at a picture and very, very careful and attentive and do a lot of erasing and checking and squinting and that stuff, I can make the picture, if it's just a line drawing, I can make it look pretty similar to the one that is the original. Enough so that it's very obvious that, that's a pretty good copy of that picture right there, I guess, it took you a surprisingly long time to copy it, though. It's just a simple line drawing. I mean, I really am bad at it. What I'm saying is, if I'm careful and really take my time, I could do it. Take that picture away, I don't think I could do it at all. I mean, it would be, I'd get like the general gist of it. It's kind of like this, with kind of like a pointy part over here, and then the arm kind of comes out like this. But I bet it wouldn't actually look like, let's say you're trying to draw a familiar character like Winnie the Pooh. You've probably seen plenty of artists' renditions of Winnie the Pooh that don't look like Winnie the Pooh, but are obviously meant to be Winnie the Pooh. So it's like they contain enough of the icon's distinguishing characteristics that you can recognize it's what it's supposed to be, but also that you recognize very clearly that it's a bad Winnie the Pooh drawing. It doesn't actually look like Winnie the Pooh. Okay, so I don't even know where I was going with that. Right. So I mean, you get the general idea, but it's not. My picture would be recognizable to the thing, but it would be like a bad Winnie the Pooh drawing. So that's my type of visualization, my iconography and visualization. But I think in individual people, I'm curious about how blind people do this. They must have some. I think they must have some visualization, but it's obviously not of the thing itself. I'd like to research that, or I'd like to interview a blind person about that. If you're blind, it would have to be somebody who's blind from birth. If you're blind, and watching this YouTube video, you're not missing anything in the visuals, because it's just me sitting in my garage talking. I'm got my fingers on my face right here. I mean, Dave Porter used to tell me as a kid, he'd always tell me to take my hands off my face. He was like a big brother to me, for sure. If I had a brother, he is a big brother. And speaking of, going completely off tangents now, I wasn't really intending to get right into the meat of the topic, I was kind of planning on pontificating. No, that's what I was doing before. What I was planning on doing now is chattering about just random shit, I don't know. Like, for example, I mentioned the word brother. Dave Porter was basically my older brother, so I didn't have any brothers. And he acted like it too, and he was a good older brother, and he tried to guide me. He gave me moral guidance. And you know what? It did make a big difference too. I remember, the reason I say, you know what, is because I sort of hadn't made the formal announcement to myself in my head that, oh yeah, that's right, you stopped actually believing in that a couple years ago, but you haven't really changed your sign yet. A couple years ago, I would have said something along the lines of, well, I mean, I hated character education at Rebay. It was just so fucking lame. But the 5 pillars of character, that's the problem, right? And then, well, that's what I'm trying to get in. This actually links nicely. I still haven't got so many fucking parenthetical. Ah. I've thought before, in another parenthetical, of writing a book where it's got some sort of formatting structure for parentheticals. And you somehow make it where, like, you write a chapter or something, and then, because I tend to include lots of right? I tend to do that stuff. You go back after you write a chapter, you probably should do it after a paragraph to see if it can be even done. Maybe I'll try this. This sounds really interesting. I could even get the what do you call it? The desktop filming super program and film the work on the more processing document. Anyway, yeah, make it parentheticals all the way through. So, for example, if I said, because look, if I said, comma, then what happens is you realize you need to lay some groundwork, right? This is the problem I'm always having in any communication, but especially in my philosophizing stuff, is that the nature of the tool that we use for these sort of things is such that we're all accustomed to taking all sorts of shortcuts, so that we don't require somebody to go through and establish the facts upon which their central point supervenes. You know, if for example, if I'm telling a story about going to the store, I don't need to say, so I was going to the store, comma, mind you, I do have a vehicle, which is, of course, necessary to drive to the store. And I got that vehicle in part because I needed to drive to the store. And the reason I don't want to walk to the store is because I don't want to carry the bags back home. You know, it's like you don't have to establish all that shit when you say you're going to drive to the store. People are going, wait, drive to the store? What do you mean drive? Do you have a car? Why did you get that car? And so we don't, you know, it's like, that's the interesting thing about how language works, is that when I say I'm going to drive to the store, I'm saying I'm going to drive to the store and that I have a car. I either have a driver's license, I'm saying I have a driver's license, because by not establishing any of these background facts one way or the other, you're basically saying, assume all the standard background facts are default. Assume there's nothing extraordinary about this particular drive to the store, that if in fact I did not have a car and was driving to the store, then you might be a story that would need to include that information, such as, I don't have any car or access to any car, so I stole a car and drove to the store. If you just said, so I was driving to the store, and you didn't mention the stealing the car, it would have to be because you were intentionally keeping it secret, because you knew it was a crime and you didn't want to share that information with people. Or you'd have to be really oblivious to, you'd have to just oh yeah, that's right, I did steal this car, didn't I? I totally forgot about that. Here, it was 5 minutes ago. What came over me anyway? Stealing that car, I tell you. Oh well, where are we going again? Store? Oh yeah. It's not thing you're gonna forget, right? You stole that car. So we don't need to affirm all those things for everybody. Just tell us a simple little story.